Hi, welcome to Inside the Lines Live. I'm Lizzie Arbogast alongside Scott Hardy, and we are here at Martin Savary Stadium getting ready for Benjamin Russell's game against Calera, final region game.
Final region game, and with playoff implications now done for the Wildcats, I think this is an opportunity for them to come out, finish strong, and build for some momentum going into the off season and getting ready for next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people say that once you are eliminated from the playoffs that there's nothing left to play for, and I don't buy into that. I actually think it's more important to play well when you're out of the playoff contention because it shows that you're still in it. It shows that, you're still willing to fight for your team and for your school and all those kinds of things. And I think both of these teams are out of playoff contention. So, neither one has something to play for, but I really think they both do.
Yeah, and, that's kind of the storyline of all the teams in our community outside or in our coverage area outside of Reeltown. So,
right.
You're looking at across the board, you're looking at teams that are seeing who they have and who they can build upon. And I think the Wildcats are doing that exact same thing. But although they're done from the playoffs, the pride that you would expect from this coaching staff and the players is still there. So you expect them to come out and still compete in tonight's game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think both you and I have talked about sort of the frustrations of the community maybe not supporting the team. And I think if you get a win tonight, you're going to get that much more support in the season finale against Valley, which is in 2 weeks. And like you said, you have something to build on, not just for the football team, but for the community to show, this season wasn't a wash. They're not Dadeville, they're not Coosa, where they've got, one win on the season. They have still a chance to go 500.
Yeah, and that's the thing, you look at in previous years, even I think it would have been Danny's last year, we made the playoffs, but we were 3-8, or the year before it was a 3-8 team, and you still made the playoffs. So
right.
In this season, you could finish with a 500 season and not make the playoffs. So
right.
it kind of varies on what you're looking for there. But as a fan of the team and not just somebody covering it, I would like to see them come out and compete tonight. And I think this is a rallying opportunity for the team as well to come together, because with nothing else to play for from a postseason aspect, they're playing for themselves at this point and for their community.
Right, yeah, and I think this is a game that they have the potential to put on a show. The biggest, in terms of scoring that Benjamin Russell has done, has both been on the road with Beauregard and Chilton County. We're both kind of the big offensive, which I love a good defensive game, but most people aren't like me. Most people want to see a lot of touchdowns, and I think that this is a game where Benjamin Russell can exploit a lot of what Calera does, especially with their run game, which has been really successful. Hezekiah Hunter, I believe, is at 946 yards on the season.
We'll have 1,000-yard rush.
Yeah, there's definitely, he's got a lot to play for. So I think this is a game where they could really put on a show tonight, especially offensively, and exploit what Calera does, because they don't, they give up a lot of points. I think they're averaging like 38 points against.
Yeah, and I think this is the perfect opponent for where the Wildcats are in the season and kind of everything that is going on this year. I think this is an opportunity for them to, again, just settle down and show what the team ultimately had things going the way they would hope, what they were capable of being. And again, this is only year 2 for Kevin Smith, so he's still, he's building his program.
Yeah,
so he has to continue to compete. And never, from a coaching staff standpoint, do you want to. What's up, McCullough? Do you ever want to, present an environment where you quit or you've let down as well. So I think that from everybody's perspective, you have to stay focused.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I talked to Coach Smith about with Calera is, although their offense isn't bad, he said it's rather predictable in that when they set up a certain way, they're definitely going to run the ball. When they set up in a different formation, they're definitely going to pass the ball. So I think if Benjamin Russell has done its homework and is studying those kinds of things, with the success that the defense has shown, this could be an opportunity where the defense could show itself off as well.
Yeah, and, this defense, truthfully, you had the dominating performance against Beauregard. And not to say the defense hasn't played great this year. They've been put in a lot of tough situations. And so the scores and the amount of time they've been on the field aren't necessarily reflective of the type of defense that the Wildcats have. But
especially the last 2 weeks.
But then you look at that game, and then Stanhope, I thought, was really probably the best performance defensively that the team had. And because that's the team that's now competing for the region title. So, again, I think this could be one where not necessarily a shutout, but, you could hold them to under 10, definitely.
Oh, for sure.
And really put out a great performance and a standout win.
Yeah, and I think one thing I've said over and over and over again, it's just a trend that Benjamin Russell has given up points on the first drive.
You said it.
It happens over and over and over again. I think the only game it didn't happen was Beauregard, which they didn't score at all, and Demopolis, which didn't score at all in the first half. I think those were the only times. I mean, even Chilton County, which we beat 55-7, the 7 points came on the first drive for Chilton County. But I think this is a team where they gotta get some momentum going early for sure, and to prove to themselves like, hey, we can blow this team out, and then like I said, maybe put on a show.
Yeah, and you would like to see it. I mean, especially for the seniors.
Yeah.
You know, some of your skill position guys, somebody like a Zasos who probably hasn't had the year that he was hoping for, Ryan Willis, and you know, those guys, you know, they're looking to put up some numbers as well.
Yeah.
And then for somebody like a Stowe who will be coming back next year, you get him ready and get him prepared. So, you know,
and Carter as well.
So yeah,
Elijah Spivey. I mean, there's a lot of guys.
Who did I say?
Stowe. He's not coming
I didn't
back.
mean to say Stowe. I meant to say Spivey.
Elijah Spivey, yeah.
Spivey coming back. So that's you know, these, and even with Carter, with him missing, he hasn't really had a lot of snaps. That's something that people, you know, after you really look at it, the amount of time that he's missed and how some of the game action has gone, haven't really been able to run the type of offense that they thought they were going to because of how the game scripts have gone. So they're still tinkering with things, getting ready. You know, obviously this late in the season, you kind of know what you are. But, again, football has become a year-round sport now. So you have to get prepared, even getting ready for the offseason.
Well, and I think also it goes back to you don't get scored on the first drive, and then you don't have to immediately go to these long passes, which we knew wasn't Benjamin Russell's strength. We never said passing wasn't their strength, but throwing it downfield for 40 yards, I don't think is their strength. You know, I mean, even Coach Smith said probably their best pass is a short pitch to Hezekiah Hunter. Yeah. You know, and so I think, but if you're down 14-0 like they were against Wetumpka, that completely puts every game plan out the window immediately, and that's something that they can't let happen against Calera, who they should be able to beat fairly easily.
Yeah, and you know, we're speaking in this manner. It's no disrespect to Calera, but paper, this is a team that Benjamin Russell should be able to handle very. Not going to say easily, but handle it enough to where you feel comfortable to say, all right, we did exactly what we wanted to do in this game.
And one thing that scares me for Benjamin Russell is because they're out of playoff contention. Next week you're on a bye week. That's like even more time to just think, okay, well, what does the last game really matter? You know, so this is and Valley, again, on paper, is a much better team than Calera. This is their chance to really, I think, you know, have one of their best performances at home, because some of their best performances of the year have been on the road, aside from Demopolis.
Yeah, and again, this is, I'm trying to not go too deep into it, but you know, I hope the stands now. It's early, but you know, hope the indication of what we see in the stands now isn't what we'll see later, and that's something that at some point I hope that we do address, and I would like to at some point. But anyway, Wildcats going for big win tonight, and morale booster for everyone.
And before we take a break, I know this is sort of out of our coverage area, but kind of. I think a lot of eyes are on this game. I do want to mention just the Stanhope-Opelika game. You know, that's sort of, obviously Opelika is a rivalry. Stanhope has just come on extraordinarily strong in these last 2 years, and I did just want to get your quick thoughts on, do you think Opelika can do it again, or is Stanhope maybe going to upset everyone and
I think Opelika wins, but Stanhope was highly underrated and overlooked coming into the season. And I think that in the playoffs, they're going to be a team that people don't want to play. Especially in that first round, if they have to go on the road or something like that, you're not going to want to play them that first round.
Yeah, and I think that's what Caleb and I said. This game could probably go either way, but this could be a good test of just how far these two teams can make it in the playoffs, how well they play each other, because I don't think... We got it. That was good. Lost my train of thought. I don't think Stanhope is ranked in the top 10, but they should probably be, especially if they win tonight. They definitely will be. But I do think this could be a good test for both of them heading into the postseason.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a good game.
Yeah, I think it'll be a low-scoring game. I think it'll be something like
and that's
first
what
team
Stanhope
to 20.
wants.
Yeah, like first, if you get to 20, you win that ball game.
Yeah, if Stanhope can keep it below 20, that I think for sure
Hunter Adams
they're going to win.
knows Opelika as well as anybody too. So I think that helps. I think you saw it in this game. Like when you know
a team really well,
you know them well. I think that helps in the game plan.
And I just love the way Stanhope's playing. I mean, all around their defense is really good. And, you know, we talk so much about their front, but their secondary is really good. Their offense is the best it's been under Coach Bradford. So I'm pretty high on Stanhope right now, actually. So hope that's a good game. We are going to take a quick break. We'll be back to talk about the rest of the games going on in the area tonight. Hi, welcome back to Inside the Lines Live. I'm Lizzie Arbogast alongside Scott Hardy. We are here for Benjamin Russell's game against Calera. Chatted about what's happening for the Wildcats in the earlier segment. Now we want to get to the rest of the area. We'll kick it off with Dadeville is headed to Beulah. Dadeville very much in the same situation as Benjamin Russell in terms of looking towards building toward the future.
Yeah, and everyone is looking at their numbers now with reclassification coming next year. You're looking to see what type of advantage you could get, and they were one of those teams that could drop, and that could be very good for that program.
Of course, then Lynette's coming back up, and
but with that in mind, I think that this obviously again was a year that they weren't expecting to make a deep run, but wanted to be a little more competitive than what you've seen in some of the games. But similar to Calera, Beulah's a team that Dadeville should have an opportunity to at least play one of their better games and
be
put
competitive.
and be very competitive in this game and expect to get a win out of this one. Not necessarily saying a dominating one or a large margin of victory, but one where they felt comfortable and again, as you said, competitive.
Yeah, and I think the big thing with them is because they do have so many young players. I mean, their starting quarterback is a sophomore. Their two starting running backs are sophomores. Across the line, they've got even a freshman playing linebacker. You've got to get those guys even more so than Benjamin Russell, who has such an important senior class. Not that Dadeville doesn't. I mean, you've got Wilkerson and Chisholm and those guys, Cooper Childers and those guys. But, Dadeville's a team that really needs to look towards the future, get some success in these two games to build on that going into January.
Yeah, and, I feel like we've been saying that about Dadeville for a while, and, they've had some really good players, and then injuries happen, and things seem to derail for the football team. But again, that's a community where there's a lot of pride built around that program, and so they'll do what they have to do to get that program back. And you just hope that the kids continue to want to come out and play, because it is tough. We've made reference to it with Benjamin Russell. If you're a kid now watching these games, there's really not a lot of incentive or morale to want to come and play. So you hope that the foundation's been built to the point to where even though they've had a little lull here. They were just recently a team that was going 10-0.
Right, so, absolutely. They've got a guy who's playing for Alabama, killing it for Alabama. Yeah. Another team, obviously, that's struggling is Central Coosa, which hosts Lafayette. One thing that was really interesting to me that Coach Thomas said earlier this week was, when your personnel is changing so much because of injuries, people quitting, pulling up JV kids, the whole point of being a high school coach is to scheme around what talent you have, to figure out the best position for the guys that you have, and that's going to change from year to year to year. For Coosa, that's changing from week to week to week, and that's a huge struggle. And I think honestly, which this sounds really bad, but they have Lafayette this week, then they have Thorsby on the road. And then they play Talladega County Central, who's also winless, who's also been blown out every single week. So I think it's almost like use these 2 games to figure out maybe how to get a win in that last week.
Yeah.
And that sounds bad, but for
I
Coosa,
think
you
we're
gotta.
all rooting for that scenario. Whatever has to happen for them to get over
Right.
the hump. And when I say get over the hump, that just is getting a win or even scoring multiple touchdowns on a week-to-week basis. So they just have to figure out a way to create some sense of urgency for their football program.
Yeah.
Right now, there really isn't one, and it's being reflected in the type of performances you see on the scoreboard.
Right, absolutely. Another team that's struggling, it seems like everybody in Talpies County, unfortunately, is struggling, except Reeltown, obviously, but Horseshoe Bend is one that I feel like they're really building towards something. Not that Dadeville and Coosa aren't, but Horseshoe Bend with a new coach, Horseshoe Bend starting, I think, 1 senior. Not even sure if he's starting anymore. All their skill position guys are juniors or even sophomores. Holt Tidwell's a sophomore. I really feel like they're building on something. They play Fayetteville tonight. It's their homecoming week. Fayetteville's record is deceivingly better than I think they actually are because they played some not great teams. They beat Coosa, beat Elwood Christian, and Victory Christian. I can't remember who it was, but I think this is a game that Horseshoe Bend could win, and they need it to even think about staying in the playoff race.
Yeah, and you talk about building the program. Coach Phillips, as we talked about when he was hired, comes from a strong pedigree, being coached by Danny Horn, and then obviously, being coached by him, and then working under him as well here at BRHS and under Kevin Smith. So the pedigree was there for him. So I think he understands what it takes to build a program, and that community has embraced him.
Yeah, they really have. And I was really impressed with how many fans traveled to Vincent last week. I mean, there was a ton of fans in the stand, and it's not a quick drive. I mean, it's probably an hour from New Site. So that was impressive to me, and I do think even though they're not winning, they're not seeing sort of the lack of community support that some of our other teams are seeing, which is a good thing.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do with, this is not to call out anybody who's a previous coach, but there was the culture the community didn't really accept that culture as well as they are, or embracing that culture as they are right now under Coach Phillips. And so he's a younger guy, somebody who's closer in age to the kids, so he understands that.
And he brings a lot of passion. You can tell that, he's one of these guys that, when I talk to him every week, he's excited, he's ready to go, and the kids feel that, and the kids feed off of that. And I think that's really important, and the community feeds off that as well.
Yeah, and they've got some decent players that are in the process of developing really good players. So I think that, 2 years from now with Holt's class, that could be one where, they put together a run that they had similar under, I guess it would have been Coach Franklin.
Coach Franklin, the big thing with Fayetteville is they love a big play, and Horseshoe Bend does not like a big play. So that's the big thing they're going to have to look out for. To me, but I do think that they can get a victory tonight. We'll get to predictions in a minute. But lastly on the docket, we have Reeltown hosting Vincent. And I actually think this will be a better test I don't think because Vincent is necessarily as bad as its record shows. I think this will obviously be a better test for Reeltown than, say, Coosa was last week. And they need, with the... Don't want to sound offensive, but the region is not very good this year. Lafayette's not as good as we thought. Thorsby's not as good as we thought. Reeltown is dominating, but how good are they in that region? So I think these last 2 weeks against Vincent, can they get the job done, go undefeated? Then they'll play Ranburne, who has the potential to also be undefeated. I think this will be a good last 2 weeks for Reeltown going into the playoffs because they want to make a deep run.
I think that they are as good. I know that they haven't played the level of competition that you would hope to see as you get ready to go for a playoff run, but from a talent level, they're as talented as any team that they'll play in 2A. So,
and what they lack in talent, they make up for in effort and in heart. They really, really want it, and they love to play with each other, and you can tell that. Not every single guy that they have is Eric Shaw, but they do have Eric Shaw. But any area in which they lack in talent, they make up for it in other ways.
And that's indicative of that community and the tough nose and Jackie O'Neal old school with Matt Johnson there. So really excited to see what they'll be able to do. We thought a couple years ago that they were going to make a run, and I think this team is probably a little better than that first year that he had with them.
Yeah.
So it's exciting to see what they're going to do. But I do think that they finish off the year undefeated and see what happens after that.
Yeah, and I think that the funny thing he said to me, he said, we still got to work on playing for 4 quarters. And I said, well, Coach, you haven't actually, in a lot of your games, you haven't actually played for 4 quarters because you've been so far ahead. I mean, all the, Horseshoe Bend was a running clock. Cusco was barely even played a second half. Fayetteville was a running clock, so they haven't had the opportunity. But I think tonight, I don't think it would be a 40-point blowout. It could be. It could be. So we'll see. All right, we're going to take one more quick break. We'll get back to talk about keys to the game and get final predictions for the night. Hi, welcome back to Inside the Lines Live. I'm Lizzie Arbogast alongside Scott Hardy. We are here at Martin Savory Stadium getting ready for the Benjamin Russell Wildcat game against Calera. I do want to mention really quick before we talk high school, I'm excited for this semi-pro football game tomorrow night. The Columbus Storm versus the Riverdale Spartans, 2 teams out of Georgia. And I like that they're giving the money back to the city. That's really cool.
Yeah, and I can't say enough about our Parks and Recreation department. You've done a tremendous job covering some of the things that have been happening within the department. But they're very excited to host this. Sonny and his staff are very excited. Megan Blake, she's done a great job coordinating it. So tomorrow night, 6 o'clock here at Martin Savory Stadium.
Yeah, it's exciting, and it's not expensive. $10 a person, I think. Free for kids under 12. They're going to do some stuff. With the youth football. Play a flag football game, I think, at halftime, he said, and the youth cheerleaders will be with their cheerleaders. I think it'll be really cool. It's going to be a fun event. So, anyway, let's get back to football. Benjamin Russell hosting Calera, final region game of the season. We're going to talk keys to the game, and I think I'm just going to say, with playoffs being out of contention, it's just, are you mentally still in it? I think Calera is in the same position, but I think they knew that they were going to be in this position a little bit more maybe than Benjamin Russell thought that they would be in this position. So they're, they've played in games where they were eliminated from playoff contention 2 weeks ago. So they've played in this game that Benjamin Russell hasn't. Can they mentally stay in it? Do they understand that they still have a lot to fight for, even though they're not fighting for the playoffs? If they do that, they get a big victory.
Yeah, and I agree with that 100%. I would just say I think this is a game where, you can let loose in this game.
Yeah.
And, if you're a competitive person or you have any competitive fire about you, you've been hearing it all season. You've been hearing it.
We've all been hearing it.
How bad you are. Okay, well,
prove
this
it.
is an opportunity to shut everybody up, and so I think this is a game where that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get to our final predictions for the night. We'll start backwards, work our way back up to the game of the week. Reeltown is hosting Vincent, also in their final region game. Reeltown has wrapped up the region title, but they're looking to go undefeated for the second year in the row in the region, and I think they do it fairly easily. I'll say that they're going to beat Vincent 35-7. Vincent scores. Vincent kicks field goals.
I'll say 43-10.
Okay. It's cute if they're not kicking a field goal.
I don't know what happens. Maybe they get a safety somewhere in there.
Oh, a safety against Reeltown? Right.
What did I say? 10? No, I'm saying 43-10. Oh, you said they're not kicking a
Right.
field goal.
Vincent's not kicking a field
I'll take it
goal.
back.
Reeltown might.
Yeah. All right. 43-7.
I'm glad I got you to change that. Now they're going to kick a field goal and make me look like an idiot. Central Coosa is hosting Lafayette. Again, I think this is, obviously we know that the skill sets just don't match. The numbers just don't match. I don't know how many people Lafayette has on the team, but I think Coosa's down to 15, maybe even less than that with an injury this week. They do get Dante Daniel back, so that's good.
Yeah.
I like that. I think they'll score, I'll say 45-6.
I'll
Lafayette.
say 38-7. 30
That's close.
to 8. 30,
That's close. You can't
38
keep
to 8.
changing
38
them all.
to 8. They're not gonna kick an extra point, so 38 to 8.
That's close.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay.
38 to 8.
Horseshoe Bend is hosting Fayetteville. It's the General's homecoming, his final homecoming in Tallapoosa County. I think this, and again, they must win in order to stay in playoff contention. Hope for an upset of Lafayette, and then hope for Fayetteville to beat Vincent. Too many mathematics still, but do need this one to even stay in it, and I think they can get it. Our experts of Luke, no offense, love you, Luke. We're very split on this game, but I did pick Horseshoe Bend to take this one. I'll say 42-31.
All right, I'm riding with the Horseshoe Bend Generals.
They need to win
33-26.
Oh, close.
Yeah, 33-26.
Close would be good. We don't get a lot of close games this year. It's unfortunate. Dadeville headed to Beulah. Beulah's, I think, 3-4 on the season. Dadeville at 1-7. Dadeville obviously looking to build something for the future. Again, I think this is a winnable game. I was such a homer this week. I'm going with Dadeville. I want them to get a win. And I think they'll do it 28-20.
Dadeville wins. I'm with you there. I think that everybody gets on track this week.
Yeah.
We'll say 30-20.
Okay.
30.
All right, and our game of the week, Benjamin Russell hosting Calera. Again, final region game of the year. I think Benjamin Russell, if they play the way that they can play, I think they could run away with this. I think it could be ugly. And it was last year. And I'm going to say Benjamin Russell 42-7.
I'm with you. Wildcat Pride.
You got your shirt
49,
on?
none of them. I do have the Wildcat shirt on, but we're going to say 49-12.
I think Hezekiah Hunter also easily goes over 1,000 yards. He only needs 50. It's either 53 or 54. Regardless, he's going to go over it, and I'm excited for him.
The first drive, I think he'll get his yards the first drive.
I could even see him breaking like just one, for 65 yards, and then it's done. So, if you're not here at Martin Salisbury Stadium, get out here, support the Wildcats. They definitely need home support. I think it all works hand in hand. The more that you support them, the more they believe in themselves, the more likely they are to win. So come on out here, support the Wildcats.
Absolutely.
Wear your Benjamin Russell colors.
Go Wildcats.
Yeah, sure, why not? All right, well, thank you guys so much for joining us. We appreciate it. I hope it's a good night. We had a bunch of losses last week, so I'm hoping for a bunch of wins this week. That's what I'm looking forward to. So thank you guys again. I'm Lizzie Arbigas alongside Scott Hardy, and this has been Inside the Lines Live.